when I'm teaching, I'm safe. I'm not the one vulnerable. I'm not the one naked. I'm the one helping somebody to take off their clothes.
It's a sexy
Right?
metaphor, but also very
Very true.
deep and true. Yeah.
And so, can I just be me? Can I just be without that?
Yeah.
What am I?
Hi, so we are live. Is it okay if we mix it up the languages this time? I know we usually just speak in English,
Yeah. No, all right. As long as I get it, I'm okay.
but I believe in you. Okay, so her name is Neha. She's an amazing lady, and instead of just doing the normal boring way of just like sharing her titles and the stuff that she has done, I think it's better if I just take them on a journey of how I met you and how I got to know who you are, and I think that's a cooler way for you to learn about her the same way I did. And because this is a conversation, it's not just like an interview, an exam. But I'm curious as to how you remember the first time we met. Like, what was your first impression? And yeah, we can start from there.
Oh, the first time I think it was the Boogie Genji shoot in Village Creative.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I mean, there was so much going on. There was a lot happening. We were all in very high spirits.
Yeah.
And I think I was just introduced to you as a filmmaker, as a video person.
Yeah. So yeah, one of
We
the
didn't talk that much, right?
I tried to keep some mystery, but yeah, I one of the people who got me into Village Creative, Frankie, legend, may she rest in power, not just peace, because she is a pioneer in the film industry, amazing editor. The first films which are on Netflix, if you look at Disconnect and Poacher, she's the one who edited it. So we were collaborating on some projects, and then she's the one who introduced me to Jason. And then the first conversation we had was around you wanting to quit for like I think you were, around that time you had just quit a high-paying job in UN. So just briefly, if it's okay with you, like take us through like how much approximately were you earning? Just for the
No, it wasn't a high pay. I mean, it was a decent job.
yeah, just
It wasn't the highest paying job I've ever had. I've had way higher earnings than that. It was an
Yeah.
organization that I was running called Justice Africa, which
Yeah.
it was an amazing job. I was the director
yeah,
and I loved it. And I think I'd already quit by that time.
yeah. You were. I think at that time you were just like from the way we had the conversation, it was
Yeah.
around you feeling.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
It was time to leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, the organization was in the process of its own death. Anyways, I mean, big institutions they all have their own issues. All of them. They are machine. You know, they become machine like. And big institutions, you know, they often get dehumanized. The humanity because of the institutionalism. It's hard. It's a question actually for our world whether or not big spaces can create big impact. You know, most of the impacts is often created when you're small.
Yeah,
When you're
grassroots
small,
level.
you're
Yeah.
connected. You're willing to take risks. You're willing to be different.
Adapt as well. It's easier.
You're flexible. You're moving. But mostly, I think is risk taking, and I think big institutions don't do well with big risk taking.
Which is surprising because they have more money to take more risks, but they usually have like
Yes.
systems that kind of prevent.
Well, the thing is, what happens is I think the incentives within the institution become the running and the maintenance of the institution itself.
Yeah.
Right? So when that's your priority, then your number one priority isn't impact. Your number one priority is first the machine or the system or the institution, and the continuation of that. My father was kind of ideologically rebellious. He was a visionary. He was a great man. He was a leader.
Yeah.
He worked in South Sudan. He lived in South Sudan since the early 80s. He stayed there during the war. He when the war took over the areas in which he was working, they were forced to leave, but they raised a little bit of money and drove back in over a year. It took them a year to get back in because they had to build a road, and they worked with refugees in northern Uganda, and it's a whole story in and of itself. It's a very it should have been a book, but it never was, because they never had podcasts at that time, right?
Yeah.
So they always said we'd write a book about this. I mean, but they said we wanted to sit down and chat and let somebody else write,
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it could have been a podcast, but so, I mean, he taught me many things. He taught me that service to others is the basis of a fulfilling or meaningful life.
Yeah.
And that was from a very young age. He exposed me to very different worlds. When I was 12, he took us to South Sudan when the war was going on.
The best father, like just vacation, family vacation.
Yeah, it was Easter holidays. It was Easter holidays. We went there for a couple of weeks.
But I think I understand, like, to not just like teach you about the importance of humanity, but actually showing you,
to
like, from
me.
At an early age, like some of the things people are going through, and to develop that empathy. Okay, continue. Sorry for the. And I feel like in a way you are kind of like through the life you live, like the continuation of the book, that through like the legacy that you are now shaping in your own way. So I think, books can come in different forms, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're very right in what you're saying. I am a continuation, and I'm also an evolution.
Yeah.
I think that I've had my own journey with the idea of service.
Yeah.
And it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
But I was, driven for something. I mean, it was interesting because I actually didn't choose this work.
Yeah.
Because I then ended up following him in South Sudan and working in South Sudan and building my own, engagement there.
Yeah.
But actually, I never wanted to do that. I actually wanted to be in Nairobi, kind of doing marketing or writing or like communication stuff.
Interesting.
But he threw me there. He threw me there as a volunteer.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want you to stay in Nairobi. You go and be there. And something happened there. I also went through, there was a beautiful time between 2005 and 2011, I think, where South Sudan was like one of the most hopeful places in the world to be. One of the most alive places in the world to be.
So what do you think changed? Because for me, like when you think of South Sudan, like for at least right now, in terms of what is going on there, it feels like despair.
Well, yeah, it is there now. I mean, it is there. It's very, 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 it's in a space where there's no space. Space for hope or to dream or even to have the energy to do anything for a very long period of time. As the forces of destruction are at full force right now there. But I mean, 2005 to 2011, they just signed a peace agreement. They were in peace after like pretty much 50 years of war with a gap of like 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And then to taste peace and to have the idea of freedom. South Sudan, voted to secede in a referendum in 2011.
Yeah, I remember the story, like, because like it's the youngest country in Africa. Obviously, I think that plays a part to it, because even like countries like Kenya, we've gone through stuff. I think we are in our adolescent stage, which is represented by the youth right now.
Or maybe we haven't actually gone there yet. We haven't gone to the depths of our, breakdown. But South Sudan has.
Yeah.
I don't think that we are...
We had our moments, like, not to brag, but it's not something to brag about, but in 2007, where people like...
I mean, that is really
a dark part.
Incomparable.
I'm not saying like one is worse than the other.
In terms of a total national...
Yeah,
and it's not even a national, because I'm really questioning this idea of the nation, but in terms of a total devastation of everything, of life, of the mind, of hope, completely. It was a very dark moment. It was a very profound moment in Kenya's history. But you're talking about now 65 years of war?
Yeah.
In South Sudan now?
Yeah, so I'm gonna connect it now to the Mbogi Genje project, because I think it's how like I got to like really know who you are, because one of the aims around that time was about raising the consciousness among the youths in Kenya. especially in slum areas, and the need to like change start from within. There is a kind of like this idea around like spiritual journeys, and you can speak more about that, especially around the hero's journey, where it's more like starting to conquer yourself before you even like venture out into the world to master who you are. And we worked with, I think at the time it was me, you, Poji, founder of Mook, a very cool guy, and then Jason, Village Creative, and we also had your husband, and he's so one of the things I liked about his he calls himself Black G, and the G stands for Jesus, which I thought was kind of cool because also like around that time I was going through my own journey of kind of realizing that like historically there's a lot of societies which were successful that were black but have been whitewashed, and kind of like taking pride in knowing that African history didn't start around colonization. But I feel like I want to hear your perspective because I feel like the project, like at the time, we had it at your place, which like you provided the amazing space and it was amazing. But I feel like personally, even us as well as to our aims, we were not like completely ready to like have the impact we need. And even like right now, I've had like shifts around like my perspective on consciousness. Like consciousness is important, but there is something I feel like even awareness, like of people's power, kind of the fact that like in your own spaces, it's kind of connected to consciousness, but it's not just being aware that like things are happening, but being aware that there are things we can do about them. And I think that's an even more important like conversation because a lot of people feel powerless, especially based on like institutions and systems that have failed them. And as much as there are places which are worse than others, we do have so much resources in Kenya that we kind of can't afford to not like set an example, I guess, like in our own way. So just like speak on like your perspective coming in, and now we'll go now to the wellness space and
So
how
my
you,
perspective about the project, or
yeah, just how like your perspective like coming in and what we tried to do and what you took from like the experience.
Um, man, it was a really fun time. I feel like it was like, at the time, like South Sudan, maybe, when it was being born.
Yeah.
It was a lot of light, a lot of hope, a lot of ideals, a lot of aspirations, a lot of positivity, big, big ideas, but newborn baby energy,
Yeah. Yeah. And you also had like coincidentally at that time she has an amazing son. I know this, you guys may not know him, but he's amazing. His name is Zion. So I think also continue, sorry.
Yeah.
Shout out.
So no, I think Zion was one.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just about one baby. And so I feel, where were we? We were just at the beginning of our own journeys with ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think we did something really wonderful. I wish I really think we should try and put out the video that we did because it was such an interesting thing that we did. And I think our idea was true. The idea was that, and it's an idea that I actually began to have towards the end of working with Justice Africa, because I did a project with the Kuflani Mamau.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually funded that myself. And it was a wonderful project. And that time I was really starting to understand that, social change cannot happen without changing the consciousness, because the society has got to a point where social change movements cannot sustain their trajectory because of the power of power.
Yeah.
And money or guns. Either we kill the movement or we buy the movement, kind of thing, and I was seeing that happening over and over again in so many places.
Yeah,
I mean, you've seen it with every revolution.
Yeah.
Right? Like it cannot really transcend. It's not transcending the power structure in some ways, right? It does for a moment.
Yeah.
And then the power structures reform and re-arise, So I had already started to understand that the only way to sustain transformational movements is through consciousness, because when we raise our consciousness, we start to feel into and align with our our own deeper values.
Yeah.
And that is what protects you from money and guns. Stick or carrot.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just wanted to interrupt you for a bit, because a lot of people who are like the new generation might not be familiar with Koflani, and like they revolutionized, I think, hip hop in Kenya and in East Africa. They pioneered a lot of. So just like speak about like why you wanted to work with them.
Well, I met them through my husband, and I was just like, these guys basically accidentally started a social movement.
Yeah.
Without any intention whatsoever. And in some cases, they didn't even know that, because, in those days, there was no social media. They didn't know they had fans. Half that they told me a lot of times they didn't. In a certain moment, they didn't know they had fans. They were, sharing. They were doing kibakuli. They were sharing ugali, burning their hands in their mouth because they were all hungry boys and they didn't have a lot of food. Living 11, 12 of them in one room.
Yeah.
And they had fans in East Africa, and they weren't even
aware.
Even
abroad, like, especially those people who kept up with.
I mean, I worked with them, and I discovered how powerful they were, like in terms of their spirit. The spirits were so powerful.
Yeah.
What I did not understand is that it doesn't matter how powerful your spirit is. What actually matters is how ready you are to align with your spirit. Spolosophy is a word I made up a long time ago, even before I started Spolosophy. And I thought about, who am I? I was sitting at a Radisson bar in Addis Ababa, and I wanted to open an Instagram account. And I'm like, all these people have such cool names.
Yeah.
Nicknames, these cool things.
Yeah.
And I was working for the African Union at that time, and I was like, who am I? What's my nickname? Who am I? And I'm like, well, I love, spiritual philosophy, but I'm also political. So at that time I was engaged a lot in political change making, and I was like, oh, Spolosophy, spiritual, political, philosophy. So that's how the name arrived. But Spolosophy was really born into the world as Spolosophy, and I think it was August 2020 or 2021, around there.
Yeah.
Around the time we, after we met, and it's my vehicle in some ways. It's a vehicle that has come through me.
Yeah.
And it is really about changing the world. And I think I've always been interested in that idea of changing the world, even though it sounds very cliche or naive, but it's what my heart values and thinks about and desires. But it's about doing it in a deeper way. So for like 15 years, I was working in the world, trying to change it from the outside, like build social movements, organize peace mediations, so on, lots of initiatives and things, projects. But with Spolosophy, it's really saying we need to recode our universe from the inside out. And the physical will automatically adjust.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to add, because sometimes when we think about impact, sometimes we don't think about the process, which sometimes is just like planting the seeds. And sometimes even like in our own work as people who want to have a positive impact in our communities, in our countries, or even in the world, we don't think about the fact that sometimes the process is that the seeds have to like develop roots before we can even see the results and even get the fruits from the work we've done. And sometimes we don't even see it in our own time. But I've seen like the transformation through some of the things we've collaborated on, some of the things you've done with other collaborations and by yourself. And I feel even sometimes we don't give ourselves like enough credit, because we always feel like it has to be something acknowledged, like the work of, like, you have to get a Nobel Peace Prize for someone to say that you are doing good work. But sometimes it's not even about that. It's about like the spaces you created. So now we are, as promised, we are gonna now connect it back to Ukoflani, and then why you feel like called to work with creatives and artists, not just like the politicians, to drive this change. Why is that important to you?
So, music is how the universe came into form. Sound is the original expression of God. That's a whole class.
Yeah.
And I think you can probably find some of that teaching online. I think there are some free classes that I have online that you can look at to understand how that is true. So anybody who is working with sound, anybody who is allowing sound through their bodies and minds, who is channeling it and is a vessel for that, they are...
Yeah, just to quote scripture, just to give context to even like the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word...
And God was in the Word.
Yeah, and even like there is prophecies about like the promised like kingdom of God like coming to earth is kind of like they will sing a new song. So just to give context to...
And we talk about the universe, one verse, one song.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel anybody who is really channeling music through their system, who is a channel or a vessel for that, if they are true to that which comes through them, they're playing with the most powerful energy in the universe. And that's the leading edge of change in some ways, right? That's one of the frontiers of transformation.
Yeah.
Because you're playing with the most potent force there is.
Yeah.
And so it happens with me a lot. Like music moves me very deeply. I work with music in my own spirituality and teachings and stuff. So, and I'm even creating now with musicians. So that's really nice.
Yeah, just to add more to what like you're sharing, because we have even like people like Bob Marley who started like movements in Jamaica through like music, One Love, and we saw like how like transforming like music was to people coming together. And so just to add context to, and even like Michael Jackson, like through the song, because I think that was one of the things that inspired the work we wanted to do around raising consciousness, because just by like different artists like coming together and the message that we are actually the world, it kind of like led to like a movement where people rallied together to do from different parts of the world to kind of like try to make a positive impact like in different communities, which I feel has kind of like been harder to do because different places, because I've at least now had the chance to travel a bit, they have their own struggles. So it's become harder for people to kind of like empathize like to places like what's happening in South Sudan, places like Palestine. It's kind of like become like almost like people become numb to like people's situation. So I just now we're gonna now connect it now, everything. I told you it will who Neha is, but around the hero's journey, you choosing to like kind of not depend on like security in terms of, but charting your own path. How has the journey been like to who the person you are like now, and kind of like take us through like some of the lessons that you've learned along the way? Because obviously choosing a spiritual journey is not like just, it's not easy. It's not, but it's something that is more meaningful, more purposeful. And I feel like you connect more like to God, and you are like there is more joy than just like existing to survive. But like take us through your own like personal journey. Some of the struggles, maybe doubts, that happen from time to time, and how you dealt with. It's okay. It's okay.
I think for me, the last 5 years, my journey, and the spiritual journey is a journey we're all on, first of all.
Yeah.
It's not that some of us are on it. We're all on it, but just some of us are aware of that. And some of us are not aware. And some of us are intentionally moving on that journey and trying to move on that journey. And some of us are just moving and flowing, and that's okay. And there's just different states of awareness, basically, right? So, I always think of like when you're at a lower level of awareness, you're totally okay with the way the world is. You don't have inner conflict. because you're not aware yet. It's when you start to become aware that you start to have conflict. And so the more you journey into the spiritual journey, or the deeper you go in this phase, at least that I've been through, the more you suffer, the more you struggle, the more you experience, the more you hurt, the more you grieve, the more you cry, the more you open yourself up to layers and layers and layers.
And grow as well, I imagine, from that
Of course there's growth, but in this period of, how do you say, digging in to yourself.
Yeah.
What you're doing is unearthing buried things and collective memory and ancestral pain and hurt from many, 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 many lifetimes. And
yeah, personal, even trauma, even sometimes you have to kind of resolve within yourself based on your upbringing. And
I mean, that is just the surface of it.
That's just the basics. Just getting started. Warm up.
But what I'm talking about is a lot more things that you're not aware of. Things that is not only yours, that you've been carrying, from your bloodline, your energetic line. And that's the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey is when your spirit says, okay, it's time now. It's time to become who you truly are at another level. Not saying that you are not who you were at that level, but now there's a higher, deeper, more powerful version of yourself that your spirit is ready to become. And so that journey is the healing journey. It's the same thing. Okay? Healing is a spiritual growth, spiritual development. That's what it is, actually. And it is the evolution of consciousness. That is what you're doing when you're healing and when you're on the spiritual path. What you're doing is you are consciously working with and raising your consciousness. And that, I want to say up front, it's a very, very challenging process. You are confronting parts of yourself that you don't want to see. You are opening parts of yourself that have been buried a long time. You are confronted with true, realities in your life that you have been kind of living with and allowing, but aren't really who you are anymore. There's a lot of loss involved in the spiritual path because you have to let go of a lot of things that you were.
Yeah.
And I find it great now, but what you're actually doing is you're walking into the unknown. You're not walking into the known. You're walking into what you don't know. You don't know where you're going. You don't know who you're becoming. You don't know what is there. That requires a degree of courage, mental fortitude, determination, resilience, withstanding, and perseverance that many people are not at. They have to have those. They have to be ready for that. Those qualities have to be ripe in them for this journey to happen.
Yeah.
And so for the last 5 years, what I have been doing is doing my own journey.
Yeah.
And then guiding other people on theirs. And we've been mirrors of each other, everybody, and everything is a mirror of you, of where you are spiritually.
Yeah.
And I have to say it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, and it's easy to talk about these things, and there is books people can read, like Carl Jung spoke about, like the steps to become self-actualized and kind of like facing your shadows, and people don't really understand what it means to actually mentally understand this and actually to go through it, because when you are kind of intellectually understanding that this is how you find fulfillment, find meaning, it's easy to speak about these things, but when you're on that journey, it's the unknown. It can be exciting when you theoretically think about, I can become my powerful self. But when you are there facing the dragon,
it's another thing. It's a whole other beast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many times where it's just I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Many times you feel that, and many times you wonder, what are you doing? Because your choices are not making sense in the structure of the world anymore.
Yeah.
Because your choices are coming from a deeper place of truth.
Yeah.
And those truths, even you don't understand them in a logical way. All you know is that they're there, and then you make this leap.
Yeah.
And you don't understand why until much later. So there's so many aspects. Like, we can talk forever about the spiritual the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
It's interesting that a theme has been actually arising for me with a lot of clients. Like, a lot of my clients right now are in this place where they're like, oh, this is so hard. Like, it's like, feels like never ending. And honestly, it does. I'm 5 years into this journey, and I feel like I'm just emerging from this deep, deep process now. And I can feel myself being very different than what I was before. I'm definitely making choices differently.
Yeah.
I'm showing up differently. I can now experience the fruit. Only now I'm just starting.
Yeah.
Now, just beginning to experience the fruit of thousands and thousands of hours of inner work.
Yeah, and I feel like a good metaphor to describe it is kind of like a metamorphosis, like even like the butterfly.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It is not a good way. It is the same thing. It is the same process.
And I just wanted to kind of like ask you like some of the like questions and doubts that you had along the way that many people have to kind of like come to terms with, like choosing to listen to your kind of truer, deeper self than just like going to the way that people have been programmed. Like, this is, it's just about getting married, getting money, getting a house, and kind of like living a more meaningful like life. Like, so like for you, obviously, and it comes like we're living in a world where like capitalism like drives the economy, and sometimes when you choose to make kind of like go on the road that has been less traveled, like you kind of have to like kind of forgo certain things and opportunities like in your quest for something deeper. So like, how did you kind of like tackle that? Because sometimes there is an aspect of self-worth that kind of comes into question in a world that people are judged based on what they own, their money, and how well they're known, which are kind of not true definitions of self-worth, but it is the way a lot of the people like view the world and view themselves, and they judge themselves harshly.
So absolutely. So of course, anybody who is trying to do something that is true to them is going to face those same spiritual questions. Who am I? Where's my value come from? What is my value? How do I feel it? How do I connect with it? Am I making a mistake? Am I being responsible? Or am I simply, like some people told me I was being irresponsible because I had a child and I stopped working, and decided to do I don't know what. And you just have to, like I said, that's why you'll not. It's the difference between having a strong spirit and aligning with that spirit. It's a difference. And that's a readiness. I don't think there's anything you can do to force yourself to be ready.
Yeah.
Either you're ready, and interestingly enough, I think when you're ready, what happens is your spirit creates some kind of external crisis.
So for me, like one of my recent favorite films is Into the Spider-Verse. You may have not watched it, but
no, I haven't. Zion has.
I'm sure he has. And there's like this really cool line, like in the first film, where the character Miles is kind of like doubting himself, his abilities, his place in the world, kind of like in our own way, like things we have to confront on our own journeys. And he asks his mentor at that time, who was someone who was kind of like a washed up Spider-Man, like, how do you know when you're ready, tied to a chair? And his response has kind of like inspired me, like even in my own personal journey, was that you don't. It's a leap of faith. And obviously it takes like courage for people to kind of like, no, this is what I've been called to do or what I feel I should do. But like kind of like keeping it, like postponing it. They're waiting for the right time to kind of like start their own journeys. And from personal experience, like that perfect time never arrives. And a lot of people live their lives And unfortunately, it happens that most of the time people regret later not having taken that leap of faith. And so for me, like that's like is kind of like my perspective of like just it feels worse. Like I always feel like we regret, and it's a cliche at this point. We regret most of the times the things we didn't do than the things we actually did. And there will always be like doubts, questions, but I feel like being true to yourself, not just like the mask that people, how people you want to be perceived, pressures from society, but having the courage to do something that feels meaningful for you. And like there is like peace and joy that comes even just like automatically when you in those times of crisis for me, like realizing like I don't have like that I don't have to ever question like what if, because you did take like you're a courageous person despite even like some of the challenges that come. And that in itself is something that you should feel proud about, to those people out there who are going through those questions and those. I just wanted to add that to it. And you are a hero, like in a way, like you're not just a hero for one day to save, like it's a constant battle. And in this spiritual journey, it's not just external demons that you have to face, you have to battle your own kind of like negative self-talk sometimes that comes, because I feel it's important to also speak about like wellness spaces for people where different communities like come together from. It's not just like uh a Buddhist thing, or a person who's an Hindu or someone who's a Christian, like different people who are on different journeys in their own way, and people who are in this world who feel called to kind of make the world a better place for others, people who feel called to be healers spiritually, and people who just have like joy creating like those communities. So just speak to us a bit about that as we
About
yeah, just not just like your experience obviously in your own like personal journey, but also like choosing to create like spaces for communities and other people who kind of like uh artists, like different creatives, people who are kind of like, I think last year you guys did a Kisima festival, which was around the theme of like what makes people feel alive, what makes me feel alive. And you invited people like Boniface, who is an advocate, and why like that has been important to you, and kind of like how it's been like the journey so far.
To be honest,
Please be honest as possible.
yeah, to be honest, I think I just do what I want.
Yeah.
What I like.
Yeah.
And I create spaces that I like.
Yeah.
I don't think I think of community as a concept. I think of it as an energy of belonging.
Yeah.
Rather than an idea that we have to make. So I love community. So I feel like me, you, the time it was CJ, right? Kaya now, Jason, Porgy, Black Jesus, Jirongi. We were a little family for a while, and that was beautiful. It was a space of belonging.
Yeah.
And it was in some sense that, right? Kisima, you know, I work with Kisima to facilitate its form in the physical world.
Yeah.
And also to help it to work with it in the spiritual realm too. But to me, it was a space that I loved being in, you know, that it gave, I saw what it was doing to me. It's the same thing about music. Why do I work with music? Because I experience it a certain way. So I understand its power because of my experience, not because I think about the community outside of me and then I'm like, oh, I want to make a community for these people. It's all very connected to the me, to the I, and to where I feel I belong, to spaces I want to belong to, and that I want to expand and amplify, therefore, for others to also experience what I'm experiencing there.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question on like what you just shared. For you, the me, like, because you said you've had those questions like, who am I? And I feel like on this journey that there is kind of like an ego death, not that there isn't like a self. It's just like the self people kind of like identify with usually is not who we are in our truest like form in essence. Because most people, when they think of who they are, sometimes they kind of like can feel like victims to the world. They didn't choose to be born and the struggles they kind of have to face. But also like kind of like seeing the harmony like in everything in your place and kind of like being like awareness. Because I can say like for me, kind of like realizing like I have like this unique lens through which I see the world. But I'm not just like poor me or poor Eugene who's kind of like trying to make his way in the world. Just like you watch any good film and you see struggles and you see overcoming, it kind of like you enjoy the whole experience, even the low moments, because you are aware of kind of like the whole connectedness of everything. So I'm just curious as we conclude this amazing, and then we'll do another conversation because we have so much to unpack, and I don't want to rush things because even like right now, I'm trying to kind of like facilitate like sharing so much stuff, and I feel like sometimes when you have too much information, it can overwhelm and then it can miss the point of what you're trying to do. But I just wanted to have that conversation around identity and your personal experience and perspective around it. And you can also, as she shares it, you can also reflect on how you perceive your identity and place in the world. Who is the person that is watching this right now? And realize kind of like how this is made possible. Like so many things had to be connected for you to even like experience this conversation. Like even your phone, like with just one thing taken out, like none of this could have happened. So just sometimes the magic in everyday experiences that we take for granted.
So identity is a big thing. It's a core um, pillar in terms of, yeah, the question you'll start with on the spiritual journey can be, who am I? And you know, the they say that I am is a prayer. I am is the most powerful two words there are, and that the divine is literally I am, I am, I am.
Yeah, that's how God described himself when Moses asked. Continue, sorry.
Yeah. So I lost my place.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's my fault, guys. But it's good to reflect also on that's powerful like verse because a lot of people have different interpretations on.
So
yeah.
Oftentimes we're allowing the outside to tell me I am this. So I'm a girl, I'm the daughter of so and so, my name is this. I am pretty or I'm not pretty or I'm tall or short or I have this job or I am a wife or I have a mother or so there's so much definition that is given to you from outside of yourself. Or that is mirroring yourself back to you through the structures that are created by the world's lens. The current world that we live in is not a high consciousness world, it's a very low consciousness world. So the way in which it is defining us is very low consciousness. And we always cling to anything that makes us feel safe. So identity keeps us safe. Identity, it allows us to function in a way in which we can navigate unpredictability and we can avoid pain as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that is how a lot of identity functions. So when I was with the African Union, when I was working with the AU panel, I was in a position of high status in my job and in my financials or my lifestyle or whatever you want to say. And so I could go anywhere and I could feel confident. And then when I became a I don't know what, all of that, I didn't, because I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing something. So I went into this journey with a question.
Yeah.
Which is, what is the highest vision of my life? I don't know. And I ask for the answers. So then those things, that's when you start to grapple with the truth of your true confidence, your true inner stability. And it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible to go into rooms and feel like you're just lost, like you're nothing relevant, like you have nothing that is worthwhile. It's horrible to go into rooms and just see what you can't have, so confronting that, all of that, what starts to happen over time if you do the work.
Yeah.
If you do the work, the healing work, the spiritual work, the personal development work, whatever work, the wellness work, whatever words you want to use.
Your mental health.
To accept this path, right?
Yeah.
If you do the work, slowly, you start to release the wounds that are present, but which you have not been aware of because you have not yet stripped away that a layer.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't that I wasn't wounded. It wasn't that I wasn't not confident when I was at the AU. It's just that my external trappings gave me a layer of protection from experiencing that wounding within myself.
Yeah.
And so you're going to go through that in many layers. It's as a woman or as a wife, as a mother, like so many things they're going to strip away all of that, and you're going to feel everything that is really there. And what is there is a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and a lot of grief and a lot of disillusion and despair and overwhelm and all of these emotions that come from the traumas that we store in our body. And once you move through those layers, then you start to taste the truth. And then you start to taste the truth. And in moments, it's an energy. And it's not something you need to describe to anyone else because it is really mainly for yourself. Even your own calling can have a layer of false identity within it.
A mask.
Delusion. Anything can provide. I think maybe anything can provide you with either a mask or a platform, depending on how you use it.
Yeah.
So very recently, I realized that because teaching is in some ways who I am, and it's what I really love it, and I think it's a natural thing that I do. But I also realized that I can use teaching as a mask. Because when I'm teaching, I'm safe. I'm not the one vulnerable. I'm not the one naked. I'm the one helping somebody to take off their clothes.
It's a sexy metaphor, but also very deep and true. Yeah.
And so can I just be me? Can I just be without that?
Yeah.
What am I?
Yeah, what's
and then it's
left?
Like, I don't know how to be like that. I don't know how to be outside of that in terms of relating in a specific way. Let's say on social media, for example, right? That's a specific space.
Yeah.
And I'm actually moving into that. I'm moving very much there into what is like, this is where I am in my journey, which I think is at the end of this long, dark tunnel.
Yeah.
Which has had many little breaks, and I've had many periods of sunlight in this long, dark tunnel. But I think this is, where I am towards the end of this tunnel.
Yeah.
Is where I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And I actually don't care anymore about the external gaze. I care about the internal gaze.
Yeah.
I said this to a friend of mine when we were in session that, true sovereignty or true ownership of your identity is when you are the viewer and you are the view.
Yeah.
That's something you can't really explain.
Yeah.
But that you hope or you wish that everybody can experience in a moment in their life. Because it's a very big moment to arrive at where you are the viewer and the view. Like your viewing yourself. And I think that's the beginning of true authenticity, which is the opposite of identity, because identity is fixed and limited. But authenticity is fluid and moving and dynamic and constantly transformational and constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So I would say, choose, like it's not going to happen just like
overnight,
because now you listen to a podcast and now you're authentic.
You heard the words, like there's
and
the words can be limiting.
neither is it over because I've reached this moment.
Still an ongoing, and that's the beauty and tragedy of it, because I think it's like both ways, because you will still have moments like back to the tunnel, but you will also have brilliant moments when you go on this journey where you come to even like a kind of like a higher epiphany of who you truly are. And I'm just going to add to like the opposite of what you said, because there is a person, a famous philosopher who talked about hell being like other people's eyes in a book where people were kind of like experiencing hell on earth because of how people perceived them. And I think our identity, like quick identity to based on how people perceive us, like is like kind of like giving away your power and your authenticity. And especially in a world like you described it, like the consciousness of like the world, not even people, like is very limited and very low. And that's why we are here. And that's why the adventure is amazing, and you meet different people along this amazing journey. And even for me, like personally, like returning right now to Kenya, like before I used to be almost everywhere. Like people want like help in this space because I do believe in Jesus Christ and what he stood for and about service. But there is service coming from a place of wanting to please and coming from a place of authority and like knowing like if I go to this specific space, I'm not there like for people, oh, look how good he is. Like I'm going there because I value that space. I value like I see a need and I enjoy like being in that space as well. And kind of like removing like those like layers and the mask which I previously had of like the servant kind of like king archetype. And people can misuse you if you're not like aware of your true self. And it happens in this world. And you can waste your time and energy on something that doesn't like create real value because you want to please or to fit a certain role or a certain mask that people have kind of like described you as. And I think that's like coming to your power and your authenticity is realizing you don't have to wear that mask. You can say no to certain like requests that you don't feel you don't need to prove yourself to anyone, but you do have a responsibility to yourself to be truthful and to be purposeful and to love yourself. And the biggest lesson I think I'm still learning is how to like love myself even as I try to love others, because without starting with yourself and trying to love others from a place of wound and weakness, you can't truly help people and you can't really empower them to also have the same. It starts within. And that's why like I think it's important to have this conversation. And I thank you for taking the time today to have this conversation on like spiritual journey and your journey as well, because it is personal and it is different to every person involved. I can write a book about my journey and she can write an amazing book about her journey, and you can get lessons from that, but you have to walk your own path. And I think we are living in a generation where we don't like call people to be just like sheep and just follow like things that you hear because we are called to different purposes, and that's what makes the world vibrant and beautiful and amazing. And I feel right now, especially in Africa, and you've seen it as well, there is a rise in consciousness, and there is a rise now in even awareness and people coming to know, even like the revolution that happened last year and is still slightly ongoing now, is around like youths like taking back their power, because a lot of the time we believe that we can't do anything to like change anything, like we just accept like circumstances as is. And it's amazing when people are brave enough to go on their own journeys, and when we come together we can even form our own Avengers. And I think it's powerful to come from a place where we each like know our own powers, know our own uniqueness, and now we can even like collaborate from a place of strength and not just trying to prove or to please or to fit a certain mask or role that society has placed on us, but actually authentically shift the world because we shifted who we are and our limited perspective of who we are. So thank you again for doing this. Do you have any last words or just...
I want to pick up on something you were just talking about, the youths.
Yeah, please do.
I really want us to think about how we describe people who are, taking the lead in transforming our societies.
Yeah.
I think Ibrahim Traore, according to the African Union definition of youth, is a youth.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody goes around calling him a youth.
I think we are actually, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's a way to kind of diminish the power of a person.
Yeah.
To categorize them.
Yeah.
By how young they are.
Yeah.
We don't go around calling all the politicians old people.
Yeah, that can be disrespectful. Yeah.
They're politicians, right?
Yeah. They're leaders, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
They're not leaders necessarily.
Not the in the they should be. Yeah, they should be. They should be.
They are rulers. That's different, right? Yeah. I think that's a label and an identity that is created to minimize power. So whoever is watching, however old you are, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Don't define yourself by your age. Define yourself by how much you're willing to learn about who you are.
Okay. Powerful. Thank you guys for watching again. If you would love for me to bring her again, I would love for you to come.
Oh, for sure. I'll always come and chat.
We can have just
we have many chats.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we had this is because our conversation are usually charged, and I was like, we should have a podcast at some point.
It's a long time coming.
It's long overdue, and so subscribe and more cool stuff coming, and
Thanks, Eugene.
Pleasure.